Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Healthy Design Functional Medicine. Today, I wanted to talk a little more about kind of the stress side of things, autonomic nervous system, just because I feel that plays such a key role for a lot of people. A lot of people seem to have one view of stress, like the person who's stressed out is the one who's just all frazzled, they're pulling their hair out. Just kind of, that is the typical presentation that you see and like you see on movies, TV, different things like that. But so many people that I see, friends, clients, family members, etc., they're so stressed out, but yet they look somewhat calm on the outside. And so stress is a bigger thing than just that frazzled part. If you've had an injury, that's a stress on your body. Even if something good happens, that's a stress on your body it has to deal with. And the body doesn't always know the difference between good and bad. It tends to respond in the same way. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping that in mind. Some of the things we see when there is a stressful time going on in life, that pain can increase from that as well. Again, I think what it boils down to when it comes to pain, a lot of times when it comes to stress, how our body deals with it, it's all about protection. Our brain's trying to protect us, and it's doing what it learned in the past was effective. That's why it's going to it now. And so it's not our brain or our body trying to work against us. It's using what was helpful in the past. That can be retrained. That's the great thing about neuroplasticity and bioplasticity. It's not just our brain and nerves that are plastic and can reshape and do different things, but we have new bone being laid down, muscle, everything. So our body is plastic. It can change depending on what inputs we put in. And so that gives us hope because we can do different things to try to get a specific outcome that's better than where we are currently. With the stress side, one of the theories that I think is very handy to help try to explain things is the Polyvagal Theory and Dr. Stephen Porges. And so the idea behind this is we have that sympathetic nervous system. Again, autonomic nervous systems separated into sympathetic and parasympathetic. And so that sympathetic is fight or flight. That's what people are used to. You got to fight something off or run away from something. And so with that, we will get a higher heart rate, might get like sweaty hands. Our gut function tends to slow down because, if we're having to fight something off, we don't really need to be too worried about digesting anything at that point. And so it just does all this stuff to help give us the reserves we need to either run away or to fight something off. So this is actually that, butterflies you get in your stomach before even a speech presentation. And we don't necessarily need that much adrenaline for the speech, but some adrenaline, some of the cortisol, that actually will help us to perform better while we're doing the public speaking. So that's where I think that plasticity side can come in if we change the way we view that as like, oh no, I have butterflies in my stomach, I'm nervous, to like, okay, this is my body doing what it needs to do to help me perform at my best. That switch, it's the same thing, but framing it in a different way takes that threat away. So now it doesn't need to protect us as much. We see that as more of a positive thing than a negative, and it can lead to that being better. And then, once the body learns like, oh, okay, well, that wasn't so bad, and so that expected outcome was different, now it can start to learn something else, and then we can kind of keep wiring that. So that way we kind of install it. It's like making a new path. We've got kind of this worn path going this way that has no grass anymore because we've been treading on it. Now we've got this path going. So we just go over once, still grass, we don't see the path. But if we keep going back and forth over that path, now it's clear. We don't have the grass on it. We see that path clearly, and this path is growing grass. We don't see it anymore, so we're not as likely to go down that. Hopefully that analogy makes sense. But so most people are familiar with that sympathetic. And I do think on that, part of our issue, again, is that most of the stress we experience now is while we're sitting still. So we still have that sympathetic response, that fight or flight response, but yet we're not having to fight anything off and we're not having to run away from anything. So like, something happens in traffic, you're just sitting there. You can't run to get that energy out. You can't fight something. Please don't have road rage to get that energy out. So it just sits there. And that's where I think we go wrong, that we don't complete that cycle. We don't kind of get that energy out, complete the cycle, and then are able to move on from there. So that's a key thing. That's where I do think exercise and other things can kind of come in to help burn some of that energy off. There's other ways you can get that energy out, complete that cycle. Again, just watch Animal Planet and look what the animals do when they have to complete that cycle. The other side of the polyvagal theory is dealing with our vagus nerve. It's one of the longest nerves in our body. Actually, directly connects to like our heart, our gut. So pretty much all of our organs. And so there is that direct communication with the brain. With our gut, we also have communication between the bacteria in our gut and our brain as well. So there's all kinds of communication going on where the brain's getting information and it's going to help protect us. So with this theory, polyvagal, so there's multiple vagal kind of inputs, so to speak. And so we have the dorsal vagal response. This is the flip side of the sympathetic fight or flight. This is that freeze response. And again, I mentioned this in a previous podcast, I'm pretty sure, but our body is actually expending just as much energy in that freeze episode as it is during that fight or flight episode, even though it looks completely different. You might actually be fighting something else, so it's easy to see, you're punching, different things like that. It's easy to see that energy coming out. When you're just frozen, you don't see the energy, but everything going on to help, you did not experience pain and different things, so you survived that issue, that insult, it's similar. So again, we still need to complete that process. Again, watch Animal Planet. You'll see the animals, they run away. If that doesn't work, they go into a freeze state. Once they get out, they shake violently and take off when it's safe. And so that could be helpful for us too, just saying. The other side of the vagus nerve, according to Dr. Porges, is the ventral vagal response. And this is where you can actually create your relationships. You can be around people, so it's that social part. And community is a huge thing for humans. We need it for optimal health. It decreases stress. It increases all kinds of good things. Like, all the research shows that when people have an issue, if they go home and they're by themselves, they're not going to do as well. Someone who goes home has someone there to take care of them. And then even those people won't do as well as someone who goes home, has someone to take care of them, but then they also have something bigger than them. So either something they take care of, someone they take care of, just something that's more important, something they're trying to get back to. That tends to lead to the best results, and that's even more community than just that second option that I mentioned. So community does play a big role. I'm going to go off on a little tangent here. I do think there can be problems sometimes depending on the quote-unquote community. One of the big things now, well, it has been for several years, is kind of find your tribe. There's great things about finding your tribe. It's good to have people that have similar interests, and just people you can relate to. So that way you can connect with them. Where that goes wrong is when those tribes isolate themselves from other tribes. And then we start getting people that don't like this group over here and don't like this group over here. And then we start getting division. And so, yes, you want some people where you have some common interests, but you're probably not going to have all the same interests as this one group. You're probably going to have some things in common with them, some things in common with these people, some things in common here, some things here. So I don't think we want to just find one tribe. We want to find just different groups of people that we can relate to. We don't have to agree on everything either. We can have different ideas, different viewpoints, and that's a good thing. And so just try to keep that in mind. That's my little tangent, because I think too often you get people that are, they're just in this one camp, and anybody who's not in that camp is wrong, and that's not the case. For example, I mentioned I'm not the biggest fan of a vegetarian or vegan diet. My view on that is that we can't say that's the best diet for all of humankind, because we know if you eat that way, it's going to lead to certain nutrient deficiencies. Now, I do think a vegan or vegetarian diet is much better than the standard American diet. I just think there's probably other diets that are better as well. I don't think there's this one diet that every single person needs to eat, though. It's going to vary at least a little bit for each of us. And if someone wants to eat a vegetarian or vegan diet, I don't have issues with that. They may have very good reasons for it, and that's fine. Again, those nutrient deficiencies, we can add some supplements in and override that. And, so that way it's not an issue. But we can't just say, well, this is the healthiest way to eat when we know it's going to lead to problems. I can't make logical sense of that. But I'm not going to fight with someone on it, because I'm sure for a lot of people, if they go from a standard American diet to pretty much any diet, carnivore, keto, vegan, vegetarian, they're going to feel better, at least for a little while, just because what they're moving to is so much better than that standard American diet. Now, we'll have to see for each person if they continue that long enough, will it lead to problems or not. Maybe, maybe not. Everybody's different. We all have different tolerance levels. So we can take things for a longer period than maybe somebody else. Who knows? But my point is just, we don't have to get in this camp of like, oh, this is the only way to eat low carb. It has to be low carb. Can't have any carbs. They're evil. No, that's not the case. Everybody's going to be different. Let's try to find what works best for us. All right, so back to the polyvagal theory. So we want that, most of the time, we want to be operating under that ventral vagal response, because now we can, again, develop relationships. We're in a parasympathetic state that allows us to rest. So it allows us to recover. It allows us to digest our food. That's where we need to be most of the time. We don't want to avoid all sympathetic activation. We need at different times that fight or flight. We need that increase in adrenaline, heart rate, blood pressure, different things. It's helpful for us. We just don't need that to be the case all the time. If we're always running up here in that sympathetic state, we're going to get burned out, because we're just burning a lot of energy all the time. And so we also don't want to get so low in a sense that we're in that dorsal vagal state and we're just kind of in this freeze episode and can't do anything. So neither one of those extremes are good. There are times we need to be up a little bit and times we need to be down a little bit. And so if we have a really good functioning HPA axis, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, then we're getting the right release of cortisol and other hormones where we can manage that. Because, a lot of times, let's say this is that ventral vagal where we want to be. Up here is that sympathetic, down here is that dorsal vagal. We don't necessarily want to go all the way up to the top or all the way down to the bottom, depending on the situation. Maybe we are in traffic and there's a lot of traffic. We need to be a little more vigilant, but we probably need to be up here rather than up here. So if we have a little bit of that release, now we're more aware, we're more focused, we can see things better. Hopefully that'll help prevent an accident. If we go way down here, now we can't react in time. If we're way up here, we might be too jittery and overreact. So that's why we want kind of that break on it, where we can go to where we need to be and then come back down. Go down to where we need to be, because again, let's say you got to sit in a class, continuing education, lecture, school, whatever. We don't want to be up here. It's going to be really hard to pay attention. But if we go way down here, it's going to be really hard to pay attention. We're going to want to go to sleep. But we need to be down some, maybe a little bit. So we want that break. We want to be able to modulate things to where our body's responding appropriately for whatever situation, whatever context we're in. And again, there's ways to train this. I do think meditation's one thing that can help long term for our body to kind of learn some of this. Breath work is great. By changing your breath, slowing it down, you can get changes quickly. Within a few seconds, definitely within a minute. And it can increase heart rate variability, which shows we're better able to kind of adapt to stress. Our pulse can go down. It's amazing what change you can get just by changing how you breathe and how quickly it can be. And then I like kind of the shaking. If there's a big issue that goes on, you just had an immediate stressor and you can't kind of get that energy out, go somewhere private, shake, get that energy out, and you'll be surprised how much better you feel. So that's a really fairly quick rundown of polyvagal. Hopefully it makes sense. I think the way we manage stress just plays a huge role in our body, because again, whether that stress is psychological, emotional, we still get the same physiological response. So that is why mental stress, emotional stress can lead to physical issues in the body. There is a true physical response every single time with hormones and different things. So that's why we want to be careful and make sure we're managing things the best we can. Can't always be perfect. We're not looking for perfect. We just want to do the best that we can. And we can't always eliminate stress. We have this world, there's going to be issues. I guess this will bring me, I'll go down another little rabbit hole real quick. One of the big things I guess I see now is trauma. And trauma is a huge deal. You've got big T trauma, which is just really big issues. I've been through that. Losing a loved one, other violent acts against you, different things like that are definitely big T trauma, and it can have big impacts on our health, the way we react to things, so the way our body manages stress and how it tries to protect us. And then you can have little T trauma, which are smaller little things. And I mean, those can add up to even be more impactful on our health than the big T trauma. I'm not saying it always does, but that is a possibility. And I'm not trying to make light of trauma at all, because it is a big deal. But I think it's that pendulum's kind of swung too far. Like when I was growing up, there's like no such thing as trauma. Obviously there was, but it wasn't something that was really talked about or dealt with or addressed. So of course it existed, it was there, and it had an impact, but it just wasn't something that was talked about. So the pendulum was way over here. Now it seems like the pendulum swung way over here to where everything's trauma. And that's not the case. Everything is not trauma. There's going to be different struggles and different issues that come up in our life. That's just what life is, unfortunately. It's not always moonbeams and rainbows and, cake, whatever. There's going to be difficulties that come up. And so we need to, again, kind of reframe things. So I think struggle is actually a good thing for us. Our body needs issues from time to time. It needs different stressors that come in so it heals. Building muscle is one thing. Lifting those weights, that's the stress. It breaks down the muscle some first, sends a signal to the body like, hey, wait, we need to be stronger. We need to be able to withstand this. So then the body sends in things, so the muscle builds up stronger and has more muscle. So now you can do more, you can do better. That's a good thing. That's a hormetic stressor. We want those. Again, I'm going through a fat loss phase right now. I think there needs to be times where we're eating in excess, so we're kind of feasting in a sense. And then there needs to be times where we're in a famine, where we're not getting the same amount of energy and food coming in. And that helps cellular processes in our body. When we have that feast, then we can kind of build up things. We can build new cells and different things. And then when we're in that more catabolic state, cells can clear out and take care of things. So we need both of those going. We don't need just one all the time. And so with struggle to, I think it helps our body to function the way it needs to. It helps to clean up different things from time to time, build up so we can manage things better. And then it also lets us know about our character. And so I think a lot of times we don't understand how much we can do, how much we can accomplish, and how much we can withstand if we don't go through those struggles. So I don't think we want to try to avoid them all the time. I definitely don't think we want to just try to add struggle on just to add struggle on. I don't think that's the way to do it, because I think there's going to be enough in life just as is. So just don't see that struggle as this huge negative. Look at it as something, it's a learning experience. You're going to get to learn about yourself and see what you're capable of. So try to put that positive spin on things. I think it can be helpful. I hope that's helpful. Again, for anyone who has experienced trauma, I've experienced trauma. I might not understand exactly what it is you're going through, but I do understand that trauma has a big impact on things. And that's part of the reason too why I don't want these things over here, like I said, that pendulum shifting too far, where like, oh, I got stuck in traffic and I hit 3 red lights, so that was traumatic. That's not traumatic. Anyone who's truly experienced trauma realize like, yeah, that's not a big deal at all. And so, but again, lots of things are a big deal. Let's work on how we manage it, how we respond to it. A big part of that is how we frame it. Do we frame it in a negative light, or do we frame it in a more positive light? So anyway, that's it for today. Sorry for rambling, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.